afternoon. All right. And today, first off, the third summary response is due today. I mean, if you're still working on it, keep working on it and just get it in as soon as you can. If you need to take the weekend, you may. But here's the caveat with that. Something else is about to be assigned today. So you don't want to let the summary response run too long, while this other thing is going on. So just make sure if you still need more time for your summary response, make sure you just get that in as soon as possible. All right, I get it. A couple people have already emailed me saying they just got life stuff going on, and clearly I have life stuff going on as well. So I understand that completely. Just don't try not to, like I said, drag it out too long, because the next step of we're about to start the next step of this final paper. And then also, like I was saying before, it is my hope that the article that you chose for your summary response number 3 is the first piece of research for your final paper. But with that being said, excuse me, nothing is set in stone quite yet as far as your topic, but next week, all right, even if you want to change directions, from what you wrote about in your summary response, if you want to do that, try to make that decision by next week, because after next week we're going to start getting into like more into our paper. So, and your research is going to be more focused, because you'll have your claim. So if you want to change directions, try to do that as soon as possible. Your summary response still counts, so that's not a problem. But I just say try to get something like settled in stone, or set in stone, and say, this is what I'm doing. All right, this is what I'm doing. And you have a week, to finalize something if you aren't pursuing, what you what you wrote about for your summary response. All right. Now, with that being said, I'm sorry, Amber, I didn't see you waiting. All right. Now, with that being said, okay, let me just enter a screen share real quick. All right. The first thing I'm going to do is go over this writing prompt with you, and then I'll go over what's due next week. So let me just, before I'll go over this prompt, the due date for your rough draft, all right, is November 17th. That's a Thursday. And yeah, that's Thursday. No, you aren't out until the week after that. So we'll do some conferences, after you get your draft in. No, I'm sorry, you'll do the peer review, and then we'll do some conferences, and then you'll get the final draft in. But so that's nearly a month from now. All right, and we're still going to do smaller parts of this essay, but the rough draft, put that on your calendar, due November 17th, and that's a good amount of time. But in order to give yourself enough time to take a break, enough time to, like, if you discover some more research, you want to incorporate that. My thought is, once we start the draft, just try to dedicate some time to it each day. All right. And, sometimes that may just be thinking about it. Other times that's, cranking out some paragraphs. Other days that's organizing your structure. But just, try to contribute something to this essay every day, because I try to, space it out to where, like, who needs added stress these days, right? Who needs added stress these days? And the fact that you're doing a research paper, and, the challenge of it is not lost on me. So I totally understand that. All right, so I'm going to go over this first, even though it's not due for a couple weeks, but I want to give you an understanding of what is being asked of you. All right, and then the proposal, that is due next week. That's when you pitch your idea, but I'll get back to that once I go over the prompt. All right, and this is in this module was formerly called week 8, but I just changed the name of it to argument, essay, draft, and proposal. So if you're on D2L, you can bring that up, or you can just follow along with me. And the assignments, the prompt is right here for the essay, and then the proposal prompt is right here. All right. Even though there's no real prompt for the proposal, it's just a couple of examples that you can use as templates. All right. I'm going to click on this. Actually, I already have one open because I was doing this morning. The directions are here, but if you want, here it is as a Word document, but mine's already open. Let me see. I think it is. Okay, here it is. All right, now, okay. The first thing we need to understand about this project is the weight of it. All right. I want to say it's about 40% of the grade, okay, for the class. And I know I owe you like one summary response and the rhetorical analysis. This weekend, I'm just going to pull a little grading marathon because my life is pretty like stationary at this point. I'm just always in one place. So I will get those loose ends tied up over the weekend. But this essay, all right, is a major part of your grade, right? Which is one reason that, you know, you should be trying to put your best effort into it. All right. So, and I'll look at the syllabus. I want to say 40%, but my brain's been all over the place these days. All right. But just, you know, take your time. There's enough time for you to take your time and, you know, work with purpose. All right. And then we're going to work together through the whole thing. And then if you want, you know, you can go to the ASC and see a tutor. You can use NetTutor. Even, like, I'll show you NetTutor, but one of my other students was using it, and we discovered that even though there's a 24 to 48 hour turnaround, that doesn't count for they don't count the weekend. So that was pretty interesting. But I'll come back. I'll cross that bridge when we come to it. All right. So here it is, folks. A well-formed argument, one that will persuade readers that your point of view is based on solid evidence, presents a carefully chosen and developed claim. So even if you have your topic right now, all right, you have an idea of what you want to write about, perfect. Okay, that's where we should be at this point. But now we have to take it a step further. What is your claim? What argument are you making? All right, what should or should not be happening? What's your solution, you know, to this pre-existing problem? What is your stance, you know, on a particular issue? Some kind of statement where you have to argue. And, you know, claims, there's always multiple perspectives. So, you know, you're gonna have to present your case. Okay. So presents a carefully chosen and developed claim with persuasively compelling reasons and evidence. Okay. So there's our formula again, right? Claim, reason, evidence. Okay. You need those. You need those. You need those. You need those. All right. And we're going to work through a lot of that when you do your proposal. All right, which I'll explain in a second here. And then, as I said on Tuesday, if you have any questions, just jump in at any time. All right. For this project, I can't remember if it was this class or my morning class where somebody asked me how long it is. Well, here it is. For this project, you have a minimum of 8 pages to take a stance on a debatable issue or propose an idea. If you're thinking 8 pages is a lot, just look at it as 1 page at a time. Okay, 1 page at a time. And then, you know, if you got, let's say you got about 2.5 weeks to start writing this thing, that's it's like a page a day. All right. No, it's not. It's a page every couple of days. All right. It shows you out an English major instead of a math person. All right. All right. So to take a stance, and all of your essays will fall into one of those 2 categories, meaning you're going to say, here's this pre-existing problem and here's a solution, or you're going to say, here's this issue and here's my position on this issue. All right. So in some way, like, all of your papers are either going to be proposal arguments where you're proposing an idea, or they're going to be position arguments where you look at this issue and say, here's my position. All right. It really doesn't matter what you're talking about. Like, all of your arguments are going to fall into one of those 2 categories. All right. So take a stance on a debatable issue or propose an idea and support it with credible, researched evidence. Okay, that's critical. That's a critical part of this essay, your evidence. Okay. Now, your thesis statement or your main claim should not be in the form of a question, right? So you aren't posing questions to your reader. Instead, you're providing them with answers, right? So also, if your thesis statement is in the form of a question, it can just make you sound unsure of yourself as a writer. And one of the things we want to keep in mind, like as writers, is that we want to project confidence. Because if our reader, doesn't, or if we're sounding unsure of ourselves, our reader isn't going to be open to, or our reader will start maybe being suspicious. And I think, if to continue using the analogy I've been using, like being in a court of law, just imagine the defense coming in and like, not guilty, maybe. All right. So it's like you don't want to start like sounding unsure of yourself. So don't pose a question. And it's also like, don't waver. Remember, your essay is not a pro and con essay. All right. Definitely don't make your main claim into an I believe statement, an I feel statement, and in my opinion, none of that. All right. Just make a claim. Just make a claim. Just make a claim. Just make a claim. All right. And when you're thinking about your claim, think about it like this. What do you want the audience to accept? What do you want the audience to accept? Okay. That, recess should be longer, that there should be a 3-day work week instead of a 4-day work week. All right. Minimum wage should be higher or should not be higher, depending on what your position is. And I think one of the good ways to, this isn't going to guarantee that you're making a claim, but a lot of times you can be certain that you're making a claim if the words like should or should not, or should or should be or should not be, like if those words are appearing in your thesis statement, odds are you're making a claim. All right, not guaranteed, but odds are you are. All right, but whatever you do, just make sure your thesis statement makes a claim, like it presents your argument. All right, it should confidently state the claim you want your audience to accept. Okay, guilty or not guilty, right? Now, just moving forward, you will be required to cite a minimum of 5 credible sources. Hopefully, you've already found one, for your summary response essay. But if not, there's still time. All right. Using correct MLA formatting style and guidelines. We'll have our MLA discussion before you start putting a draft together. Actually, that'll be next week because you're going to do something with or you're going to really start researching, and then you're going to do something. You're going to do something with it. All right. So 5 credible sources using correct MLA formatting style and guidelines. The topic and claim. Here it says completely in your hands, but it's more like 99% in your hands. All right. But just make sure you choose a topic that's debatable. Okay. Don't tell me how, climate change is affecting the planet, because that's already been established. Most of the scientific community would agree that climate change is really affecting our planet. So there's no need to argue that. Instead, a better argument could be, okay, if you're talking about climate change, what could be done about it, right? Maybe like government funding should be shifted, towards, more spending for, to address climate change. All right. So whatever you're writing about, don't just tell your audience about the issue. Remember, you're making a claim and you're supporting that claim. All right. So don't get into or don't fall into the trap of just telling your audience that this issue exists. All right. And we had a similar discussion with a student this morning wanting to write about childhood obesity, which is good, but the follow-up question to that was, what about childhood obesity? We know it's an issue in the U.S. We can look at the numbers, but now what? So the argument is like, what should be done about it? All right, what should be done about it? All right. So debatable, and then sufficiently narrow. An example of a narrow topic would be, and this happened last winter term. I had a student who wanted to write about gentrification, which I think is a great topic for argument. All right, a great topic for argument. But for a paper like this, gentrification itself might be a little too broad. But after some dialogue, she came up with this idea. Well, I can just keep it local because this stuff is happening in my community. So now that's something that's narrow, gentrification in Detroit. All right. So that's she got a good, it might have been longer than 8 pages. I can't recall, but it turned out to be a decent paper. All right. But it took some work like narrowing that topic down. So it's fine if you start with a big idea, but just narrow it down to something that can be managed within the span of the pages you have. And then, something that you're going to be able to find a good amount of research on. All right. And then, make sure your topic is interesting to you, because you're living with this topic. You're living with this topic for a while. I'm going to be living with it with you. Okay. But you're the one who's going to be doing the research. All right. So just make sure you have an interest in this. Make sure it's about something that you care about, as I keep saying. All right. And then as we get down here, make sure your topic is arguable. Okay. Make sure it makes an argument, or excuse me, make sure it's arguable. No subjective arguments like this is better than that, or I think it even, Quentin, I don't know if you're on this session, but like the LeBron and the Jordan comparison, or the PS5 and Xbox comparison. Those are fun and interesting to talk about, but as far as like proving it, all right, you can't really prove that, because at the end of the day, even if you look at the numbers, at the end of the day, it's going to boil down to opinion. All right, it's like, who has the best pizza, right? Some people think like chains are going to have the best pizza. It's going to be, it can be, it can be, but if you want to move in a different direction, you can do that as well. But hopefully, right, that you are rolling with that topic that you did your summary response on. All right. That's another thing. You can jump in the chat if you have a question too. All right. All right. So yes, no, this is better than that. Right? No, who makes the best pizza argument, because again, that's just too subjective. No statements of facts, because then it's like you paint yourself into a corner with that. Like you don't have anything to argue. Like global warming is affecting the planet. Yes, it is. All right. Now what? Okay. So that's not really an argument. All right. It's not really an argument. And then no arguments rooted in conspiracy. This morning I did have a like flat Earth came up. All right. I was like, don't you dare, man, don't you dare. All right. So no arguments rooted in conspiracies, or like we've had the discussion about no arguments rooted in religion or faith. Because as these types of arguments, involve asking your reader to take a leap of faith with you. All right, and that's not really fair to ask an audience. All right, so aim for a debatable issue that will give you some room to argue. Okay, if you're stuck or if you don't know what to write about, again, you got those sites, points of view, opposing viewpoints in context. You got procon.org. You got Google, like, hey, Google, what should I write an argument about? Okay, hopefully you don't have to do that, though. All right, hopefully you don't have to do that. Okay, but again, I think all this, it like starts within, right? Meaning like it starts with what you're interested in. And then, what issues do you care about? What issues affect you? All right, what issues affect your community? All right, what national issues do you care about? What international issues do you care about? What global issues do you care about? All right, local issues, even though we started there. Okay. If you're having trouble settling on the topic, check out the OCC library database for some ideas. As I said, opposing views and context and points of view are great resources. Choosing a topic is one of the most important stages. As I said, you'll be living with this topic for the remainder of the semester, so make sure it's something you care about, something you're passionate about, something that you have things to say about. Okay, Robert, yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, I'm writing about how they're diluting the Black Lives Matter
Oh
movement.
yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, that's mainly what I'm
That's good. Okay,
concerned
absolutely,
about. That. I think it's
absolutely.
appropriate because like the movie Till
Yes.
about Emmett Till is coming out, so I thought it was appropriate to write
Yeah,
about that. Yeah.
absolutely,
Mhm.
absolutely. Okay,
Yeah. Okay.
it's a good paper. All right. Now, the content of your essay. Okay, that is where your research is going to pay off. Okay, that's when your research is going to pay off, right? All of the research that you will be doing, that's what's going to help you develop your essay. Okay, so again, that's why we have a good amount of time, not only for the writing of the essay, but for our research as well. All right. So the content of your essay should be substantial, well researched, and interesting. Again, you make it interesting. I know I get that word is subjective. Try to know as much as you can about your topic so that you may present an in-depth analysis that persuades your reader to accept your claim. Okay. Remember, you're the expert. No matter what you're writing about, you're the expert on that. Once the reader sees your name, on top of the paper, you are the expert. Okay. You're the expert. So go to one of those opposing viewpoint sites and just read the background. Okay. Before you even get into the argument, right? Know what's been done. Know the main studies, right? Know the leading thinkers, in that field if you can. But definitely know the history of what you're talking about, if there is some history. All right. But what I'm saying is like the context is going to be different, or the background information you share with your audience is going to be different depending on what you write about. But whatever you do, you have to show yourself to be well versed, in whatever you're writing about. All right. So know your stuff. Know your stuff. Know your stuff. Okay. Oh, and then finally, please note that this project offers an extra credit opportunity, a 3 to 5 minute presentation. Okay. And if you've ever addressed an audience, you probably already know that 3 to 5 minutes is no time at all. Like once you get up there. And right now, I have dedicated our last, or I've designated our last class meeting as the day of presentations. All right. So if you want to take advantage of that opportunity, it's there for you. Robert? Huh?
That's perfect because audience seemed to lose focus on the message within that time frame. So that's perfect. I took
Absolutely.
a speech
Yeah. Yeah.
class.
Keep it brief, right? Keep it brief.
Right.
And in the speech class,
Exactly.
I'm sure they told you start off strong and finish strong.
Right. No
Right.
longer than 7 minutes. That's what they say.
Yeah.
No longer
So it kind of
6 minutes.
makes you question why like lectures can be like 3 hours, right? Like
Right.
some of your
Oh,
classes.
you have to you have to be very entertaining to hold a lecture for that long and
That's like
keep people focused.
marathon stuff, right?
Right.
Marathon lecturing. Okay. So if you want to do the presentation at the end, I will give you some that's kind of later on down the line, but I'll give you some strategies. And I've gotten some really creative ones. Like if you don't want to use PowerPoint, there's a site that I use all the time, Canva, and it gives you a lot of options, if you don't want to do a PowerPoint. All right. And I've had people like use props and all that. Or like during the pandemic, some people just made like recordings and uploaded them. And some of them, using like the iMovie on the iPhone thing, some of them were like real cinematic, is what I'm saying. So, if you have that creative bone and you can definitely exercise it, on this presentation. All right. Presentation is not mandatory, but if you want a couple extra points added to your paper, then it can make a difference. It can make a difference. All right. Now, here's some guidelines for this thing. All right. One, when you're doing your research and when you're writing your paper, don't rely on one or two sources. Okay, like you have this one source that you keep referring to. Mix it up. Mix it up. You have to use a minimum of 5 for this essay. So try to get a good blend. Also, like the types of research you can use, could vary, right? Books, right? I mean, like physical books, those are on the table. If you want to grab some stuff from the digital library, some online articles, some periodicals, some newspaper articles, some magazine articles, documentaries are cool. Interviews are also cool. I just say try to find a good blend of different types of evidence. All right, and use them all. Use them all throughout your essay, even if it's something that's to the contrary of what you're arguing. That can be something that you argue against in your essay. That's fine. All right. So now, right, second bullet point. It's a research paper, right? Not a rant. Okay. And I say that because sometimes I get papers where there's all these proclamations being made in the paper, but there's no evidence. All right. And those papers kind of rely on pathos too much, right? Appeal to emotion. So just be sure whatever claim you put forth, okay, whether that's your thesis statement or whether it's a claim that you make within your paper, whatever claim you make, just make sure that there's some evidence to back it up, because there's nothing wrong with using emotional appeal in the paper, but for these papers and really any other argument that you want to make, you want to rely on appeal to logic. All right. And appeal to emotion is kind of like your cherry on top, if you will. It's what can add life to your paper, or it can add like a human element to your paper. But you're gonna need the numbers too. Okay, you're gonna need the data too. You're gonna need the hardcore research too. You're gonna need the receipts. Is what I'm saying. All right. So it's not a rant. Okay, don't go off on some issue. All right, or spend 2 or 3 pages, voicing your opinion about some issue. Back it up. Okay, back it up. It's also not an exploration of personal feelings. So again, we're moving away from like the I voice in this paper. Just make a claim. Make a claim and support it with evidence. All right. Now, all right. So for your papers, when you upload them, check your turn it in percentage. All right. In a perfect world, for this paper, you should be at around 10 or 15%. All right. If it's a little high for your rough draft, cool. We'll work with it. We'll tell you what, or we can talk about, what needs to be done. But if it gets too high, go back over it yourself and say, okay, maybe I overquote it. All right. Maybe I overquote it. Maybe I can take some of these quotes out, and then maybe I can put some of my own original wording in here. All right. And remember, and you'll hear me say this again about 100 more times, as you're getting ready to do this paper, but let your evidence, let it be your support, for points that you've already made. Don't let it make the points for you. All right. Don't let it make the points for you. So you're going to make a point and then you're going to support it, with a reason, and then you're going to support that reason with your evidence. All right. So majority of this essay should be in your own words. And that's just one of the rules for like essay writing of this nature. Like 10 to 15% is the research sweet spot. All right. And then this is also, of great importance. Don't write an essay that is purely informational. And it's kind of what I was saying earlier about the childhood obesity example, right? Don't write a paper that just tells your reader about childhood obesity. Okay. Now, if you're writing a paper saying what should be done or what could be done, about childhood obesity, are you going to have to write about childhood obesity in that paper? Yeah. You're going to have to show them that it's an issue, right? But that can't be your entire paper, is what I'm saying. So once you laid out, like, here's the problem, right? Then you can start discussing your solution, but don't turn your paper into one that is purely informational. Okay. So be bold, take a stand on an issue, or propose a solution, a logical solution to an issue. That's another thing. If you're proposing a solution to an issue, just make sure it's plausible. And then I think one way of showing that your solution is plausible, maybe there's precedent. Maybe what you're discussing has been done somewhere before. Like I know just in passing, we've talked like about the war on drugs in this class, and a lot of other countries, in the world, kind of look at that as a public health issue as opposed to a criminal issue, right? So if you're saying, the U.S. should adopt, a stance that is more, I guess, more prone to help than punishment, maybe you can make that argument and say, look, it's been done. It's been done. It may not look exactly like that when it's brought to the U.S., but this has been done. All right. And that could be about any issue where you're proposing a solution. Look at where it's been done before. Okay. And that goes for like free education, universal health care. Most issues, that we talk about have been done somewhere. All right, have been done somewhere. So, maybe there's precedent, for your issue. All right. And I say be bold because, making an argument does involve like putting yourself out there to a certain extent. Okay. So don't have any apprehension about that. Okay, about putting yourself out there, right? Papers with no definite stance will not succeed. Okay. So if you write a paper about climate change and every paragraph is discussing some different aspect of climate change, that paper is not going to succeed because you've just written an informational paper. All right. Remember, our goal here is to make a claim and support it. Okay. Make a claim and support it. All right. Make an argument. Okay. We've been reading arguments this entire semester. So now it's time to put your own together. All right. Try to avoid lengthy quotes. Sometimes you need a block quote, but most of the time, especially for a paper of this length, which, believe it or not, isn't that long. But you don't really need block quotations for a paper of this length. And if you do, try to keep them to a minimum. All right. And I'll show you, if you don't know what I mean by block quotations, I'll show you when we have our MLA discussion. And then finally, I'm not part of the audience. Okay. I'm not part of your audience. Now, will I be evaluating these things? Of course. All right. But when I say I'm not part of your audience, just kind of like try not to, and I'm not saying anyone in here was going to do this, but try not to write what you think your instructor wants to hear. One, it doesn't matter what you're writing about. My position on whatever you're writing about is irrelevant. It doesn't influence, how I evaluate your papers. I've received papers before where it's something I've been completely against, but in reading that paper, I can say, you know what, this was very well argued. All right, very well argued, and that's kind of how I look at it. I look at just the strength of the argument, not necessarily like if it's something I agree with or not, because that's, like I said, it's not really relevant, for this paper. When I say like nobody cares about what we think, like that applies to me as well, right? So yeah, nobody cares. Nobody cares. Okay, they just care what you can prove. All right, so don't think that there's something that I want to hear. All right. But if you do consider me part of your audience, I'm just like everyone else, man, just trying to figure stuff out here. All right. Just trying to find my way, trying to understand stuff. Okay. Now, in a little bit here, I'm going to ask you to identify your audience. But if you're having trouble doing that, just think of your audience as rational but skeptical. Rational, they're open to listen. If you show them the evidence, they're going to be like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. Skeptical, they're not just going to believe you. Okay? Not just going to believe you because you're a nice person. All right? Rational but skeptical people that are interested in knowing more about your topic. Okay? Now, gonna bypass all these because these are more like when we start drafting. So I'll revisit some of this stuff. But here is our timeline. All right. Here's our timeline. Okay. This is important. So we've already started this process, meaning like your summary response essay is due today. And as I said before, if you're still working on it, just get that in ASAP. All right. This is where we are today. Okay. Summary response essay number 3. All right. Where we kind of dipped our feet in the water a little bit as far as like our topics are concerned. Okay. But now, once we get this summary response essay knocked out, and that's why I said before, like if you need some additional time, you know, you're free to take it, but don't take too long because you're going to start on this proposal. All right. And you want to give yourself enough time to get that going as well. And the proposal, like I provided a template to where you can pretty much delete, you know, everything I have on the template and just kind of use your own, just fill it in with your own stuff. But again, even though the proposal, it's a relatively short assignment, but it still involves, you know, you like thinking through your issue, whatever you're talking about, because really, even though you aren't writing the paper yet, your proposal is going to be that space where you just start getting your paper organized. Okay. And you can envision the way your paper is going to unfold with that. All right. So we'll do that. We'll get that in next week. And then the following week, we'll start on an annotated bibliography. And your annotated bibliography is just kind of like these detailed explanations of your research. I'll show you examples of it when the time comes. All right. And then from there, you got 2 weeks. 2 weeks to put your draft together. 2 weeks. Right. So like I said, that's less than a page a day, right? My advice, work on it some every day, even if it's maybe you get a couple paragraphs out one day, but the next day you're thinking about paragraphs, right? Or you're just like jotting down notes and stuff. So kind of always be working on this, even when you aren't working on it, I guess is what I'm saying. Okay. And then, you know, you never know when that idea is going to hit you. Okay. When that idea is going to hit you. A lot of times it hits us when we aren't looking for it. All right. So the rough draft and peer review is the 17th. All right. You know what? I misspoke earlier. You guys are actually out the following week. Just triple check. I used to know every break, man. Now it's kind of all runs together. All right. Yeah, you guys are out the following week, right? From that the 21st to that whole week. Okay. And then we'll come back and do our conferences. And then once we do those conferences, you'll have an additional 2 weeks, right? To get your final draft in. All right. Now, here's the thing about your final draft. As you know, like this semester, I've always been like, and I try to be, you know, in every class, but just flexible on due dates. But when we get to the end of the semester, there isn't going to be that much room for flex. All right. Because just from like a logistical standpoint, because technically our class ends, even though the end of the semester is the 19th, but technically our class ends the 15th. So just as faculty, I'm supposed to have my grades in like 48 hours, you know, after the class ends. So there isn't going to be much time, you know, for extensions. Unfortunately, if you do find yourself needing an extension, depending on when I'm asked, the conversation might be like just take an incomplete, all right, and then finish it up. All right, but hopefully we don't have to go there, because even with an incomplete, that's still like paperwork I have to do. I have to get approved by the dean and all that good stuff. or the change of grade has to get approved by the dean and all that. So just try your best, like I said, to work on this thing every day. And I've tried to space it out enough to where, like I get, you have other obligations, you got other classes going on, you got jobs, you got families, you got all that. All right, but ask yourself, when you're going to get this work in. Okay, when you're going to get this work in. I know I'm not asking you to do a small job. Like I understand that completely. So, when you're going to do it, and only you know the answer to that, right? Only you know the answer to that. But again, as I said before, my thoughts are try to contribute something to this piece every day. All right, contribute something to it. And then presentations are the 15th. That's the final. That's our last meeting. Yep, that's our last meeting, and then the semester ends that following Monday. All right. So try your best, man. Try your best. If you feel yourself slipping, or if you feel yourself, struggling to get motivated, just let me know. Okay, just let me know. I'm not saying I have all the answers, but I've been a student, and then I've been faculty for a long time, so I might have some strategies that could help you. Okay. My first strategy though is don't panic. Okay. Sometimes when a person panics, they do things outside of their character, like plagiarism. All right. So don't hit the panic button. All right. And take your time. Take your time and don't overthink it. And finally, turn something in, because whatever you turn in is going to be better than taking a 0 on an assignment that is 40% of the grade. All right. So whatever you have, when it's time to cash your chips in, just turn it in. All right. Turn it in, and hopefully it's your best work, by the time when the time comes. Okay. So here's the prompt. And as I said, when we started this conversation, this is in the argument, essay, draft, and proposal module. All right. And then it's right here, the essay, rough draft. And what is also in here is the proposal. This is due 1 week from today. And like I said, I don't have like official prompts for this. I just have 2 examples. All right. And I'm just going to look at the same one I was looking at this morning. Oh, yeah. Okay. I'll do a different one than I was looking at this morning. Okay. Now, all right. There's another one that I use. Do I have that one open too? Oh yeah, here's an additional example. So both of these examples are on here, and one of them is about like meditation in the public school curriculum, and the one that I just opened is about like private prisons. All right, and I think we already may have started that or talked about it a little bit. So I'll just keep this one open. But as I was saying before, just get rid of my stuff and put your own stuff in there. All right. I'm just going to skip around in these directions here. Your proposal should be written with the goal of convincing others that you have a worthwhile topic, a plan to execute your research, and an idea of how you will present your argument to your audience. Okay. Really, you're just getting yourself organized, and you're pitching an idea. All right. Please take this aspect of the research project seriously, as rush job proposals usually lead to low quality papers. On the other hand, well thought out proposals typically lead to successful projects. That's true, man. Like the work you put in here, it usually reflects in the papers that get submitted. All right. So if you spend some time like thinking through your proposal, odds are, that's going to be reflected in your paper. All right. And then you can use the template. It says on the back of this, because when I print it out, it's 2 pages, but I haven't printed this in a minute. And then make sure you get it uploaded. No handwritten copies of this. And nobody's turning anything handwritten this semester, but I just put it out there. All right. And then no emailed copies of this as well. Always use the assignment folder on D2L. All right. And put the date in there. Bam. Get rid of this. All right. You can almost just change the year, right? Okay. It's to me. And then who's it from? You. and your OTC email address. So we're going a little bit formal with this, even though I know your name and know your email address already. Just put it on here. Now, subject of the paper. All right, yours is going to look like this. Okay, and you're going to get rid of these brackets too. All right, I just have this stuff here, you know, to show you like what should go in this space. And there, here's an example. So the topic is the overall idea what the paper is about. You're not proposing a claim just yet. You're not proposing a claim just yet. All right, this is just what it's about. Okay, it's just what it's about. All right, the overall idea. Now, this next category or this next item is, this is your claim. This is what your paper is going to rest on. This is what answers that question. What do you want the audience to accept? My suggestion to you on your proposal, keep it simple. You can always go back and do whatever you want to it, but for your proposal, just simple and clear. Simple and clear, this is our mantra for this assignment, for this proposal. Simple and clear, all right? So, and then this is working pieces. Working pieces is just how it sounds. It's something you're still working on, okay? You got the idea, but you know, maybe you're revising the wording still, whatever, all right? And the way this is said can and probably will change in your paper, but for right now on your proposal, just lay out your idea, okay? Lay out your idea in as plain words as you can, okay? Now, this aspect of the proposal, what's the issue? This part answers the question, why should I care about this? Why is this important? Okay, why is this important, right? And some people will take this section of the proposal and a version of this will actually become their introduction in their paper. That's fine, okay? That's fine. You can do that if you want. So this is just your background on the issue, okay? Why should I care? Not I, you know, Professor Norwood, but why as a member of your audience, okay? Or better yet, I think the question you could ask yourself is, why do you care? Like, what about this issue, you know, piqued your interest? All right, U.S. has a serious problem with incarceration. While the country only represents about 4.5% of the global population, the U.S. incarcerates nearly 25% of the world's inmates. That is crazy. 1/4 of the people in the world that are locked up here. All right. The number of inmates in America's correctional facilities has quadrupled since the early 80s. Though the prison population is gradually decreasing, there still remain significant issues with the way the U.S. does incarceration, racial and economic disparities in sentencing. Go ahead, Robert.
Because we had two systems. You have the federal and you had the state.
Yeah.
So it's all prisons everywhere.
Absolutely. And then you have like the private ones, right?
Yeah.
And,
oh man.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
So this one is focusing on the private systems. All right, but you're right. I think all of them, you know, come with their own set of problems. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But I think private prisons are, I'm not gonna say worse because it's just varying degrees of terrible. But I think private prisons have the it's kind of like a private school, meaning like we have our own rules in this school. Okay. Absolutely. If you don't like it, go somewhere else.
It's mainly
go ahead.
Excuse me. It's mainly for people that, you know, they have money and Absolutely. They're not trying to argue anything. They just want to do their time and just get it over with. So that's the benefit of a private prison. Mm-hmm. If you're trying to write motions, 2055s and briefs to appeal your rights, and yeah, you're not going to be able to do that.
Yeah, none of that. None of that. All right.
Right.
So racial and economic disparities in sentencing, fewer opportunities for rehabilitation, and inhumane conditions plague many prisons in the U.S. Furthermore, the aforementioned issues become intensified in privately owned, profit-driven prisons. With the goal of maximizing profit, private prisons will make cutbacks in key areas, and the effect is poorly managed and understaffed facilities that significantly decrease an inmate's chances of successfully reintegrating in society. All right, now, I just remember I didn't read my thesis statement up here. Privately owned prison systems are ineffective and should be phased out. That's what I want the reader to take from this paper. And this is like just your explanation of this issue. So essentially, what you're doing in this section of your proposal, give some background. Okay, give some background on this issue. Maybe there's some history, you want to share with the reader. All right. And now you don't want this part of the essay, of your proposal to run too long. All right. You want it to be more than like 2 or 3 sentences, of course, but you don't want it to take up like your entire paper, because this part, remember, you're just proposing an idea. You're going to give your reader like a full-blown explanation within your paper. All right. So for this aspect of the proposal, just think about what background needs to be shared. Okay. Now, this is your why. So I guess this could be your what right here. This is your why. Why are you doing this, man? What's your purpose? What's your purpose of this paper? Okay, of course, grades and all that good stuff. Okay, that's my argument, man. Grades should be faded out. There should be a new system of evaluation by now, other than these letter grades that don't really mean anything. All right. What's your purpose? The aim of this project is to prove the assertion that prison for profit is counterproductive and should be phased out. That's the goal, right? And then what questions is your essay going to address? Okay, the questions to be addressed in this study are: what drives private prison populations? What is the true cost of budget slashing measures in private prisons? How do private prisons increase recidivism? How are inmates' human and civil rights violated? Okay, so that's going to be unique to yours. What questions do you plan to answer in your essay? Or better yet, I think a better way to put that is, what questions do you think your audience is going to have? Right? What are they going to want to know? If you had to present this paper, right? What kind of questions do you think the audience may have? If there was like a Q&A session. And I ask that because like you can answer a lot of that within your paper. Okay. And another point about these questions is these can also fuel your research. So if I'm asking myself, or I'm responding to the question, how do private prisons increase recidivism? That's a research question I can start looking into. Okay. And I would probably start simple, just search, private prisons and recidivism. All right, see what I get. Robert? Yep.
Yeah, the inmates have no punishment, really. They're just doing their time. They have their money. Oh, I'm gonna just, do this little time, then I'm gonna get out. I'm gonna go back and do what I was doing. Yeah.
And then there aren't that many opportunities for a person to pick up a skill, right? Or pick up a trade.
Change.
Yep,
no way to change. No way of change. No recidivism. Not at all.
Man, I was just watching this commercial yesterday for like HVAC training. And I was thinking to myself, like, wouldn't it be cool if, a person could, come out with some certifications like that?
Milan prison, the federal prison Milan, right here in Michigan. It has all of that. That of course, that I was in prison. Okay. Milan, I went to Milan prison at the end of my term, like the last 2 years. And when I got there, I saw all of the opportunities there. And I was like, man, had I got here, I could have came out electrician.
Absolutely.
HVAC. It's so much there. It's
so you,
man, but it's hard to get to.
Absolutely. And that's what I was gonna say, Robert. Like, you got to ask yourself, like, why isn't this a standard? Right? If we're really about like rehabilitation and reentry, like, why isn't that the standard?
Right. And Milan's the only prison like that. Milan was my 5th institution. Down the line of institutions that I went to, because in the federal, you go to different institutions. Of course, you step down. And when I got to Milan, I'm like, man, it's not a great place. It's not a great place. Of course, it's not a
But
great place,
there was
but
more opportunity.
a lot of opportunity. It's a lot of experience. Like they had
Absolutely.
all of the automotive things, the
Yeah.
cars, collision shop. I'm like, all of this is here. I'm like, this is like
Yes.
college. This is how I started to get my Pell Grant from Milan.
Absolutely.
I got the Pell Grant with Milan.
Mhm.
They have college. You can get your high school diploma there. It had a lot of opportunities. So it's a decent
Yeah.
it's a decent prison. One of the
So,
decent ones.
and for me, like it makes sense for something like that to be standard,
Right. It should be
right?
standard. All prisons should have
Yep.
that. Yeah.
Meaning like
Some
if
prisons have no program.
yeah, and that's what I'm saying. So if it should be like if you want to
Right.
better yourself or you want to like put yourself in position when you're out, those
Right.
opportunities should be there. Like if you want to go to school, that should be there. If you want like a trade, that should be there. But
Mhm.
for me that just makes sense.
Right.
It just makes sense because, and I forget the number, but it's like a high. There's a high chance, that once a person is released, there's a high chance that they're going to go back because we don't do a good enough job of preparing people like for life after.
No.
All right,
You
that's a paper. That's a
get
paper too, right?
Yeah,
That's a
that's
paper
definitely
too. Yeah,
definitely.
that's a paper too. All right. So again, right, and I'm glad you asked that question, Robert, or you're offering us these insights because it's like it kind of ties back into this, right? What's the questions that you want answered? And then I also think, Robert, just from your insights, it kind of shows like the power of like interviewing people because it's one
Right.
hand, to get the research and do the numbers, but I think like having, like a firsthand account, could help as well, right?
Exactly.
Just that combination of evidence.
Right.
Right?
13 years of experience.
There you go. There you go. And I think like who better than you? Who better than you
Right.
to enlighten, right? All right.
Right.
So very good. All right. Now, who will benefit the most from reading your paper, right? If you want to write to a general audience, that's fine. But for this assignment, who's involved? Who are the stakeholders in your issue? This is just directions here. You can get rid of all this when you do yours. All right. The intended audience for this study, oops, I didn't mean to do that. The intended audience for this study will consist of inmates, lawmakers, private prison shareholders, politicians, and citizens with an interest, okay, in changing the way the U.S. handles incarceration. All right. So who's going to care about your paper, right? Who's going to benefit the most from reading your paper? Okay. And again, it's going to be different for everybody. One thing that's going to be the same for all these is documentation style, MLA. You just leave this blank. I mean, you can just leave this as it is because we're all using MLA in here. Okay. No APA papers, man. If you turn in the APA paper, I might just delete it from D2L. No. All right. All right. Now, what kinds of sources are you going to use? When it says, now here, you aren't presenting your sources just yet. You're just indicating the kinds of sources that you're going to use, that you could potentially use for this paper, because you may not have started going like really deeply into your research. Okay. This study will utilize a blend of statistical data from the U.S. Bureau of Justice Statistics and peer-reviewed studies about the economics of private prisons. So that's one. That's my numbers. The study will also include data from academic journals such as American Law Review. Additionally, anecdotal evidence like personal testimony from inmates will be used to support claims made in this study. So what you should strive for in this aspect of the proposal, just a good combination of evidence. Okay. And I think also when you think about it, think logos and pathos, right? Because I think to have a successful argument, like a synthesis, of those should do it. All right. So maybe you do have the stuff that's the numbers, okay, and the academic journals, or for this one like a law review or something like that. But just as Robert, shared some of his insights with us, I think nothing is better than firsthand accounts when paired with with other forms of evidence. So go interview somebody. go talk to somebody, about whatever you're writing about. Okay, that's good. Okay, that's good stuff for this paper. Now, okay, you got your claim up here. Right, your claim's right here. Here's your reasons. I would say like a minimum of 4 in this section, but if you want to keep going, maybe you don't use all your reasons in your paper. Maybe you don't use all your reasons. Maybe one of these reasons, it takes you a page just to lay it out. Okay, that's fine.
Hey,
right?
that right there, number 5. Excuse me. Right
Yeah.
there, number 5. Inmates exploited for cheap labor, and they call it Unicor. That's the you
Yeah.
do that. That's
Yeah.
one of the jobs
Okay.
there.
Yep, that's a euphemism, right? It's a good
Right.
way of saying like unpaid labor or cheap labor. Okay, but
Like
if
what
it's
you
so
make
little, yeah, it might as well be unpaid.
exactly. You'll make like what you'll make probably like $500 a week on the outside, and there you'll make $500 a month.
Oh man.
Yeah, I got all the game.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you have to think like whatever labor you're doing, like the profit is going to be way more, right, than
Oh,
500 a month, right?
man, they're making millions, man.
Mhm.
They doing file cabinets, office furniture, like file cabinets and stuff like that at Milan. At
Yep.
some places they're doing army shorts at
Yeah.
Pollock, USP.
So now
It's a bunch.
that kind of makes you think, Robert, and,
Yeah,
and others, that there's incentive, right, to keep those beds
yeah,
full,
right,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
At
So,
Mariana,
mhm.
excuse me, at
Yeah, go
Mariana
ahead.
FCI, it's in Florida, Mariana FCI.
Mhm.
They have scrap, electronic scrap. So they're taking
Mhm.
the gold, silver out of the electronics,
Wow.
and they're scrapping them, and it's
Wow.
money in that. It's a
Okay.
lot. It's a lot going on.
So
Yeah.
that's the stuff that stuff like that, it keeps your paper engaging. Just little, like I said, insights like that, or gaps of knowledge, because one of the reactions you want your reader to have, or could to possibly have, when reading your paper is, oh, I never thought about it like that, or oh, I didn't know that. Okay, so you're convincing them, but you may also be like enlightening them. Okay, but whatever you have here, you need reasons. Why should I support your claim? Okay, or why should I accept your claim? Even if I don't like, and I'm saying I as a member of the audience, but even if I don't agree with it, why should I at least accept it as being well argued? Because you're going to have good reasons. Privately owned prisons have a history of inhumane treatment. Privately owned prisons have a vested interest in recidivism. They do not save taxpayers money. Quote unquote minorities, the poor, and immigrants are overrepresented, and the inmates exploited for cheap labor. Now, I can't stop right there though, because I'm saying all this stuff, but in my paper, then I need to show them how it's true. I need to show that history of inhumane treatment. I need to show that that there's a vested interest in getting people to come back after they're released. So for each one of your reasons, you have to have some evidence to support it. Okay, and like I said, one of your reasons could be a paragraph. Another one of your reasons could be several paragraphs that unfolds over a few pages. It depends on like what you want to show emphasis to. All right. And then, as I was saying before, you can keep going 6, 7, 8, 9, knowing that you may not use all this in your paper. But I just say, like, it's always good to have more than what you're going to actually use. Okay. So for your proposal, try to come up with as many reasons as you can. And when you start writing your paper, some of them might not work. Okay. That's cool. But I think if you have like 4 that do work, everything else is going to be just a bonus. All right. So this is plenty, for a paper of the length that we're writing. Like once you incorporate your research with it, once you incorporate like your rationale with it, this is going to be plenty. So when you get to the reasons aspect of this proposal, try to come up with a minimum of 4, but I do encourage you to go beyond 4 because you're only going to be helping yourself, in the long run. All right, spend some time thinking about reasons as well. Okay, and then why does your idea make sense? Okay, why does it make sense? Okay, here I just have look at how other countries, address crime and punishment. Okay, meaning like where has what you're proposing been done before? All right, or if you're taking a stand on the issue, just show your reader how it makes sense. What's your rationale? All right, and then finally, this could be a significant part of your paper as well. Now, here, you don't have to present a counter argument just yet, but you do have to present what are the main objections to your issue. You're gonna have your response in your paper, but for this one, you can just note like the main objections. Who's gonna disagree with you, and what are they saying? All right. So this paper would respond to the notions that private prisons benefit taxpayers and inmates, because some people think that. So I would have to respond to that. All right. Also, some people just say, and this is with all prisons, some people say, well, they're getting what they deserve. All right. And, people should be accountable for their actions, but I think sometimes there's a tendency to forget, like, that's a human being, we just threw away. All right. And, I think just societally, we tend to boil people down to their mistakes. All right. And that becomes their identity when, I always say like a butterfly is 3 things in their life, right? They're a larvae, a caterpillar, and then, they're a butterfly. So, humans, sometimes we have to go through that same evolution too. Robert?
Yeah, preconceived notions and the thought that people don't change. People do change.
Absolutely.
And people
Absolutely.
become, I'll make an example.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And so I think that's the thing. It's, once a person, serves whatever time they get, then there's still that tendency to look at them in that same way. When the thing that happened, that might have been years ago. And, sometimes they may be, just guilt by association, right? Sometimes people, are incarcerated, not that they did anything, it's just that they didn't open their mouth, when somebody else did something. So, they had to eat the whole plate too. So it's just like you said, Robert, sometimes we do have these preconceived notions and they allow us, to make these judgments on people when, a person's a person. Everybody's been somewhere. All right. So now, my good people, who is going to object to you? One of these, if you're doing an issue that you got from one of these opposing viewpoints websites, look at the cons, right? Look at the arguments against, whatever you're arguing, okay? And for this one, you don't have to know every objection to the idea you're going to propose, but do know the main ones, right? And two or three should cut it. Okay, that's plenty. But you do have to have something like, what are you going to say when people argue against you? Because again, just kind of imagine it as you're doing a presentation and there's this question and answer session and somebody raises a question that kind of runs counter to what you believe or runs counter to everything you just presented. You can't, like your argument can't fall apart just because somebody questions it. All right. And in some ways, if you put like these counter arguments in your paper, that really tightens up your argument because you're saying to your audience, you know what? I've looked at the opposition and here's my reply. Okay. So here's the example. And then there's another example on there as well. All right. So think about it, right? Think about if you haven't chosen a topic yet, which I hope you have, but think about your topic. And then once you choose your topic, think about your claim, right? And then once you've thought about your claim, think about your reason, right? Think about what evidence you're going to gather. Think about, who's going to be against you and then what you're going to say to them. All right. You got a week to get this thing together. So, do your best. If, Tuesday, we're in class or we're in a session and you say, hey, Norwood, can I run some ideas past you? Of course you can. All right. Or even if you just email me and say, hey, Norwood, here's what I'm thinking about. That's cool. Okay. Or if you say, hey, Norwood, I got this idea, but I'm not sure how to formulate a claim, right? That's cool too. All right. So get it done, get busy. All right. Both of these materials, both of these items are in this argument, essay, and draft proposal module. Or you can just click on assignments. You can see the assignments as well. I will get those grading loose ends, tightened up over the weekend. And like I said, if you got any other questions, you know how to find me. All right. Any questions or thoughts before we end, Robert?
Great class, Norwood. Great class.
I appreciate it, man. Appreciate it. You just made my day, man. Just made my day. Okay. Teresa, how do you stay perfectly still like that? All right. So if there's
it's a picture.
I know. You stay perfectly still the whole class. All right. But now, so if you have any other questions, I'll be on my computer. I got a few meetings tomorrow that are virtual, so I'll be on or near my computer most of the time. And then I'm camped out at my dad's house, so we got my little office set up over here. So if you got any questions, I'm not far from my computer. All right. So have a good weekend, folks. Even though it doesn't look like it, it is supposed to warm up a little bit. So see if you can get outside, man. All right. Take care. Don't be all work and no play, though. All right. Let me end this recording.